The phone buzzed at 4:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I almost didn't look at it. I'd silenced everything except the county system after Denise moved out, because I couldn't stand the sound of a notification that wasn't her. But the county system that I'd left on. I worked in public health administration for Garfield County, not medicine, not emergency response. I processed compliance reports, tracked vaccination coverage numbers, coordinated between the state health department and our 3 rural clinics. Desk work. The kind of job where the most urgent thing that ever happened was a late quarterly filing. The alert that morning wasn't addressed to me personally. It was routed through the state emergency health network to every county-level public health employee in our region, 63 people across 4 counties. A preliminary containment advisory. The language was bureaucratic enough that most of those 63 people would read it, note it, and wait for a follow-up. I know this because that's what I would have done 6 months earlier. But 6 months earlier, I hadn't been sleeping 3 hours a night in an empty house, waking before dawn with nothing to do but check my phone. The advisory referenced an atypical pathogen event in Chambers City, 70 miles southeast. Quarantine protocols activated at Chambers Regional Medical. Mutual aid request filed with the state. The final line read, "County health departments within the 100-mile advisory radius should prepare contingency staffing plans and await further guidance. Prepare and await." That's what it said. I sat on the edge of my bed and read it twice. Then I opened the news. Nothing. Checked the Chambers City local paper's website. Nothing current. Their last article was from the previous afternoon. A school board meeting. Checked social media. A few scattered posts from Chambers City residents about ambulances. One shaky video of a roadblock on Route 11 that could have been anything. I should have gone back to sleep. Or showered and driven to the office at 8 like every other Tuesday. Instead, I called Greg Paulson. Greg was the county emergency management coordinator, not my boss, not even in my department. But the man who would know if this advisory meant something real. I'd worked with him on flu season planning for 6 years. Knew his voice, knew his patterns. Greg answered on the second ring, which told me he'd already been awake. "You saw it," he said. "Yeah." "How much do you know about what's happening in Chambers?" "Just what's in the advisory, and some nothing from online." Greg was quiet for 4 seconds. Then, "I got a separate call from Dave Torrance at the state EOC 20 minutes ago. Off the record. They're moving the advisory radius to 150 miles within the hour. That puts us inside." Inside what? The prepare to evacuate recommendation. Not mandatory, but prepare. "Greg, what is it?" "They don't know, or they're not saying yet. Dave used the word unprecedented twice, and Dave doesn't waste words." Another pause. "I'm going to start calling my people. You should think about yours." He hung up. I sat there holding the phone. The house was dark. Denise's side of the closet was empty. Our son, Colton, was 40 minutes away in Bridgewater, asleep in the apartment he shared with 2 other 23-year-olds who never answered their phones before noon. My mother was 12 minutes away in the house I grew up in, 81 years old, on blood pressure medication and a blood thinner, with a landline she kept plugged in and a cell phone she forgot to charge. My brother, Kev, lived 90 minutes north with his wife and 2 kids. Outside the radius, probably. Maybe. Denise was in the apartment she'd rented in April, 11 minutes from the house. We weren't divorced yet. The paperwork sat on my kitchen counter like a piece of mail I kept meaning to open. And then there was everyone else. The people I worked with. The people in our county who would get the advisory at the same speed I did eventually, and the ones who wouldn't get it at all, because they weren't in any system. I had information. Not much. But more than most people around me had at 4:47 on a Tuesday morning. If you've ever had a head start on something bad, even something small, like knowing layoffs were coming before the announcement, you know the weight of it. Whom you tell first says something about you that you can't take back. I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel, because what I did next is something I've turned over for a long time, and I think it matters that people hear how ordinary the beginning of a terrible choice can feel. I called my mother. Not Colton, not Denise, not Kev. My 81-year-old mother who sleeps with the phone on the nightstand because she's afraid of falling and no one knowing. She answered on the 5th ring, groggy. "Wes, what's wrong?" "Mom, I need you to get dressed and pack a bag. Medication, clothes for 3 days, your insurance cards. I'm coming to get you in 30 minutes. "What happened?" "There might be an evacuation order coming. I don't know for sure yet, but I want you ready." "An evacuation for what?" "Is there a fire?" "I don't know exactly. Something medical. Something in Chambers City." "Chambers City is miles away." "I know. I'm being careful. Will you get dressed?" She said she would. I believed her because my mother has never once in her life argued with urgency in my voice, only with what she considers unreasonable calm. I hung up and stared at my phone. Colton was next. Obviously, Colton was next. But Colton was in Bridgewater, which was north the same direction as away from Chambers City. He was young, mobile, had a car, had roommates. If the alert went public in an hour, he'd see it. He'd be fine. My mother couldn't drive anymore, couldn't pack quickly, needed someone to come. That's what I told myself. And it was true. It was also true that calling Colton meant hearing his voice, and possibly hearing him say, "Dad, you're overreacting," which would have made me stop, made me second guess, made me do what I always did, defer to the calmer person in the room. That's the thing Denise had said in March, the night she told me she was leaving. Not those words, but the shape of it. You never trust your own read on anything, Wes. You wait for someone else to confirm it. And then you act like the confirmation was the decision. She wasn't wrong. I'd spent 20 years in a job where waiting for guidance was the correct professional behavior. Report, pass upward, await direction. It made me good at paperwork and bad at everything that required moving first. So I didn't call Colton yet. Because if he said, "Relax, Dad," I might have listened. I got dressed, filled a duffel, put the first aid kit from under the bathroom sink on top, grabbed the folder of documents from the filing cabinet, insurance, birth certificates, the deed, put 4 bottles of water and a box of granola bars from the pantry into a grocery bag. Then I walked outside. It was still dark. My street was quiet, every house dark. I stood next to my truck in the driveway and felt the strangeness of knowing something my neighbors didn't. The Okafor family across the street had a 3-year-old. The Hendersons next door were both in their 70s. Lonnie Voss, 2 houses down, worked night shift at the plastics plant and probably wasn't even home. I could knock on doors. I could tell them what I knew, which was almost nothing. A bureaucratic advisory. A phone call from Greg. The word unprecedented. If I knocked and it turned out to be nothing, an overreaction, a contained incident, a recall of the advisory by 8 a.m., then I was the man on the street at 5 in the morning, scaring people for no reason. The public health guy who panicked. The guy whose wife left him, who wasn't sleeping, who maybe wasn't thinking clearly. I got in the truck. My mother was sitting on her front porch when I pulled up at 5:16. Housecoat, sneakers, a canvas tote bag on her lap. She'd put on lipstick, which she does whenever she leaves the house regardless of circumstance. "I brought my pills," she said, getting in. "And the photo album, the old one with your father." "Good. That's good, Mom. Are we going to Colton's?" "Not yet. I need to make some calls first." I helped her into the truck and pulled away. As I drove, I tried Colton. Straight to voicemail. Tried again. Voicemail. Texted him. "Call me when you wake up. Important. Not an emergency yet, but call me." Then I sat at the intersection of Maple and Route 6, my mother in the passenger seat, and thought about Denise. We'd been separated 5 months. The paperwork was mutual, but the silence wasn't. She'd stopped responding to texts that weren't about logistics. The last real conversation we'd had was 3 weeks ago when I'd called about Colton's birthday dinner and she'd said, "Just tell me the time and place, Wes. You don't need to build up to it." If I called her now and said an evacuation might be coming, she would either take it seriously or she would hear it as what she'd accused me of for years, needing an excuse to be necessary to someone. I pulled over and called her anyway. It rang 6 times. Then her voice, flat with sleep. "Wes, it's 5 in the morning. I know. I'm sorry. There's a health advisory out of Chambers City. Greg Paulson told me the evacuation radius is expanding. I've already picked up Mom. I think you should pack a bag." Silence. I could hear her breathing shift to the sound of someone sitting up in bed. "What kind of health advisory?" "They're calling it an atypical pathogen event. I don't have details. But Greg's source at the state said unprecedented. I don't know if it'll be mandatory or if it'll be walked back by noon. I thought you should know early." "And you already picked up your mother?" "Yes. Before calling me." "Denise." "I'm not arguing. I'm just noting it." A pause. "Are you asking me to come with you, or are you just passing along information?" The question landed like a physical thing, because she'd identified exactly what I hadn't decided. Was I trying to get my family together, or was I just distributing information so I didn't have to feel guilty about having it? "I'm asking you to pack a bag," I said. "And then I think we should figure out what to do together." "Together." She said it without inflection. "All right. I'll be ready in 20 minutes. Are you coming here?" "Yes." "Fine." She hung up. My mother, who'd heard every word, said nothing. She adjusted her tote bag and watched the dark houses pass. I drove toward Denise's apartment and tried Colton again. Voicemail. Texted, "Colton, please call me. Serious." At 5:34, I pulled into the lot behind Denise's building. She was already outside, jeans, boots, hair pulled back, a backpack, and a rolling suitcase. She opened the back door, put her things in, and climbed in beside them without looking at me. "Hi, Irene," she said to my mother. "Hello, sweetheart." "Where are we going?" Denise asked. "I don't know yet. North, I think, away from Chambers." "You don't have a plan?" "No, I have early information and a truck." "And your mother." "And you." She didn't respond to that. I pulled back onto Route 6 and headed north toward Bridgewater, toward Colton. My phone sat on the center console, silent. At 5:51, the county emergency alert system activated on all 3 of our phones simultaneously. The official tone, the formal language, shelter in place. Advisory Garfield County, avoid travel until further notice. I was already 15 minutes down the road with a head start that suddenly mattered. "Shelter in place," Denise read aloud. "They're telling people to stay home." "That's the first step." Greg said, "Prepare to evacuate." That'll come next. Or it won't. And we're driving around at 6 in the morning for nothing. Maybe. You're still going to Bridgewater. Colton isn't answering. He never answers before noon. I know. She didn't tell me to turn around. She didn't say I was overreacting. She just settled back into the seat, and that quiet absence of disagreement felt more meaningful than agreement would have. Route 6 was empty pre-dawn, midweek, nothing moving. The few houses I passed were dark, normal dark, sleeping dark. I thought about the Okafor's 3-year-old and the Henderson's porch light that stayed on all night, and Lonnie Voss, who might be driving home from the plant right now with no idea. I hadn't knocked. I drove past a gas station, its sign lit but lot empty, and almost stopped for fuel. Decided against it. 3/4 of a tank was plenty for Bridgewater and back. Another decision I'd revisit later. At 6:09, Colton finally called. "Dad, what's going on? You texted like 4 times. Where are you?" "Home, in bed. What's happening?" "Did you get the county alert?" I hold on. Muffled sounds. "Shelter in place. What the hell?" "Pack a bag. I'm 20 minutes away. Be outside." "Dad, shelter in place means stay inside. That's literally what it..." "Colton, I've talked to Greg Paulson. The next advisory is going to be evacuate. Something is happening in Chambers City, and it's serious. Pack clothes, your medication, your laptop, chargers. Be outside in 20 minutes. "What medication?" "I take allergy pills." "Then bring the allergy pills. Please just be ready." "Is Mom with you?" He meant Denise. "Yes, and Grandma." "Jesus." A pause. "All right, 20 minutes. I hung up. Denise said, "What medication does Colton take?" I was thinking of my mother's prescriptions. I misspoke. "You panicked him." "Good." My mother said, "When your father was alive, he didn't believe in these kinds of things. He would have gone back to sleep." "I know, Mom. I'm not saying he was right." I drove. Colton was on the curb outside his apartment building at 6:31, backpack and a garbage bag full of clothes. He looked rumpled and young and annoyed. He got in the back seat next to Denise and said, "Hey, Mom," and she said, "Hey, baby." And that small, ordinary exchange, those 4 syllables of normalcy between people I loved, who I'd been coordinating around like obstacles for 5 months, cracked something loose in my chest. "So, where are we going?" he asked. "Your Uncle Kev's," I said. It was the first time I'd committed to a destination aloud. 90 minutes north, far from Chambers City. Kev had a house with a basement and a half-acre lot and was married to Tamsin, who was the most competent, practical person I'd ever met. "Does Uncle Kev know we're coming?" I hadn't called him yet. Another order of operations choice I'd made without thinking it through. I'd called Mom, then Denise, then driven to Colton. Kev was last. Kev was always last in my mind, not because I loved him less, but because Kev didn't need me. Kev was older, more capable, had his own systems. Calling Kev meant admitting I wasn't handling this alone. "I'll call him now." I dialed. Kev answered immediately, his voice alert, awake, already edged. "Wes, are you watching the news?" "What's on the news?" "Turn on the radio, any station." I hit the radio. Static on the first 2 presets. The third, a regional AM news station, was mid-broadcast. "Chambers City has been placed under full quarantine by the governor's office. National Guard units are being deployed to the perimeter. Residents within the expanded advisory area are urged to remain in their homes. We are receiving unconfirmed reports of..." The signal cut to dead air for 3 seconds, then returned. Similar incidents at Chambers Regional Medical and at 2 care facilities within the city. Authorities have not confirmed the nature of the pathogen, but have described it as presenting with extreme aggression in advanced stage patients. We repeat, do not attempt to travel to or from Chambers City. All roads. I turned it down. My mother had her hand on her purse strap, knuckles white. Kev, I said, I've got Mom, Denise, and Colton. We're on Route 6 North. Can we come to you? Yes, obviously yes. How far out? About 70 minutes. I'll be here. Tamsin's already pulling supplies. Wes, don't stop anywhere. I won't. I hung up and felt the truck suddenly change meaning around me. We weren't driving. We were running. Extreme aggression, Colton said from the back seat. What does that mean? Nobody answered. Route 6 stayed empty for another 12 minutes. Then I started seeing other cars coming from the south, moving north, faster than road speed. A white SUV passed me doing at least 80. Then a pickup with a trailer weaving between lanes. Then a steady stream. Families, loaded vehicles, luggage visible through rear windows. Other people got the same idea, Denise said. Other people got the same alert. You moved first. By an hour, maybe less. An hour matters. She was right. An hour mattered. It mattered because Route 6 was still moving, the intersections still clear, the gas stations still lit, and the stoplights still working. An hour from now or 2, or 3, this road could be something else entirely. I checked the mirror. Colton was on his phone, scrolling. His face had changed, no longer annoyed. Something else. Dad, people in Chambers are posting videos. Don't watch them. Dad, Colton, not right now. He went quiet. After a moment, Denise said softly, Put the phone in your pocket. He did. At 7:15, the radio cut out entirely. Every station, static or silence. My phone still had signal, but the data was crawling. I tried to load the county emergency page, and it timed out. Then a new alert hit all 4 phones. My mother's buzzed from inside her tote bag, startling her. Evacuation order, Garfield County and adjacent areas. All residents should relocate north or west immediately. Avoid Route 11, Highway 9, and Chambers Corridor. This is not a drill. There it is, I said. You called it, Denise said. Not a compliment, an observation. Greg called it. I just listened. The traffic on Route 6 thickened. Not stopped, not yet, but the comfortable emptiness of half an hour earlier was gone. I moved into the left lane and held speed. My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Mr. Tobin? This is Justine from the county health office. Are you available for emergency staffing? Justine, I'm in my car. I have my family. We're activating all personnel. The county shelter at Garfield High needs public health staff for intake processing. I'm already north of... Mr. Tobin, are you available or not? I thought about the shelter at Garfield High, the gymnasium with the fold-out cots, the fluorescent lights and the clipboard sign-ins and the boxes of donated blankets, the hundreds of people who would arrive there with nothing, needing someone to tell them what to do. I looked at my mother, at the rear view where Denise and Colton sat in the back of my truck. No, I said. I'm not available. Understood. Stay safe, Mr. Tobin. She hung up. Nobody in the truck said anything about it. But I felt the weight of that no settle somewhere specific between my shoulders, dense and permanent. Traffic stopped at 7:38. Not slowed, stopped. The entire northbound flow of Route 6 locked up at the junction with Highway 19. where 3 lanes attempted to merge into the 2-lane rural highway heading north. Cars as far forward as I could see, unmoving. "Wes," Denise said. "I see it." I looked at the map on my phone, still loading slowly over weakened signal. There were back roads. County roads I'd driven for 20 years, processing clinic compliance visits to every rural practice in the area. Roads that weren't on anyone's evacuation muscle memory because they didn't connect to highways. "I know another way," I said. I pulled onto the shoulder, illegal, aggressive, the kind of driving I'd never done in my life, and cut across the intersection before the merge. A horn blared. I turned east on Highway 19, the wrong direction, away from north and then immediately south onto County Road 4. "Wes, this is going the wrong way," my mother said. "It connects. Trust me." County Road 4 ran south for 2 miles, then cut west through the farmland, then intersected County Road 7, which ran straight north for 30 miles before hitting the state route that would take us to Kev's. I'd driven this route exactly twice in my life. Both times for work, visiting the rural clinic in Haywood. But I remembered it. The road was empty. 2 lanes, no center line, corn stubble on both sides. I accelerated. And then, at the intersection with County Road 7, I saw the car. A tan sedan, pulled over with its hazards on. A woman standing beside it, waving at me as I approached. Not frantic, controlled, deliberate. I slowed. "Wes," Denise said. Not "don't stop," not "stop." Just my name, like a question. I pulled over. The woman was about 60, short gray hair, a jacket that wasn't warm enough for the morning chill. She walked toward my window with purpose. "Are you heading north?" she asked. "Yes." "My car won't start. I've been trying for 10 minutes. I don't have anyone to call. My phone stopped working 20 minutes ago." I looked at her car, at the truck, at the 4 people already inside. "Get in," I said. Denise moved over. The woman climbed into the back seat. 3 adults and Colton now packed tight. She smelled like coffee and hand soap. "Thank you. My name is Vera Kasperzak. Wes, that's my mother Irene, my son Colton, and Denise." "I was trying to get to my son's house near Fairview," she said, then caught herself. "The town, not..." She gestured at my actual Colton. "How far?" "About 40 miles north." That was near Kev's, close enough. "We're going that direction." I pulled back onto County Road 7 and drove. The road stayed empty for 5 minutes, then 10. The silence in the truck felt different now, heavier with a stranger in it. Everyone's private fear made public by the proximity of an unfamiliar person. "What do you know about what's happening?" Vera asked. I told her what I knew. The advisory, Greg's call, the radio. She nodded like she'd already assembled most of it. "I worked at Chambers Regional," she said. "Retired 3 years ago, nursing administration. I still get their internal alerts." She paused. "I got one at 3 a.m. that said all off-duty staff should not report to the hospital, that it was a containment situation and additional personnel would complicate the perimeter." I glanced at her in the mirror. "They told staff not to come in." "That's never happened before. That's why I packed and left." So Vera had known even earlier than I did. Had processed the same kind of ambiguous information and made the same kind of early morning choice. Except she was alone, and her car had died, and the infrastructure between her and her son had just dissolved while she stood on the shoulder of a county road. "Did you call your son?" I asked. "My phone died before I could reach him." She held up the phone black screen. The battery was fine. It just stopped. Colton leaned forward. "The towers might be going down," Or overloaded, Vera said. I've seen that in hospital emergencies. Everyone calls at once. I checked my own phone. 1 bar, fading. I'd told Kev 70 minutes. We were 30 into it. If the cell network collapsed, he wouldn't know whether we were coming or stuck somewhere or... I pulled over. What are you doing? Denise asked. Calling Kev while I still can. I dialed. The call connected barely, thin and crackling. Wes, where? We're on County 7, about 40 minutes out. If you don't hear from me again, we're still coming. Okay. Wes, the news is it's bad. Stay on the back roads. Don't stop. I already stopped once. I picked up someone. Silence. All right, just get here. The call dropped. I wasn't sure he heard my response. I pulled back onto the road. County 7 stretched north through flat farmland, straight as a ruler. I could see a mile ahead. Empty. You should have kept driving, Denise said quietly. Not about Vera. About the gas station I'd passed at 6 in the morning. About the half-hour advantage I hadn't fully exploited. Maybe. It's not a criticism. I know what it is. I still don't know whether stopping for Vera was the right call. Not because of Vera herself. She was capable, informed, and ultimately helpful in ways I couldn't have predicted. But because stopping once makes the second stop easier. And the third. And at some point, you're no longer evacuating your family, you're running a service. I wonder if you'd had that same stretch of empty road ahead of you and a stranger waving from the shoulder, whether you'd have pulled over or kept your eyes forward. I genuinely don't know which answer I respect more. County Road 7 stayed clear for another 8 miles. Then we came over a slight rise and I saw 2 vehicles ahead. A minivan and a pickup. Both stopped in the road, doors open, no one visible. I slowed to a crawl. Don't stop, Vera said from the back, her voice low and specific. The tone of someone who had processed more information from Chambers Regional's internal alert than she'd shared. I looked at the vehicles. The minivan's sliding door was open. A child's car seat visible inside, empty. The pickup's driver's side door hung open, the cab light still on. No one in the fields, no one on the road, no sound except my engine. I steered around them onto the gravel's shoulder tight, my passenger side mirror nearly clipping the pickup's tailgate, and kept going. In the rear view, the 2 vehicles sat in the road like something interrupted, like a sentence stopped mid-word. My mother crossed herself and said nothing. 7 miles later, the road crossed a small bridge over Barton Creek. On the far side, a county sheriff's cruiser sat sideways across both lanes, lights off, engine running. A deputy stood in front of it, hand raised. I stopped, rolled my window down. The deputy was young, mid-20s, sunburned, his uniform shirt not fully tucked. He leaned down to my window with the careful control of someone operating well outside his training. How many in the vehicle? 5. He looked past me, counted, nodded. Where are you headed? Family up near Colton. You're clear through for now. Roads open to the county line. After that, I can't tell you what you'll find. He stepped back, then stopped. You see those vehicles back there? The van and the truck? Yes. Did you see anyone? No. He looked at the road behind me like he was deciding something. Then, keep moving. Don't stop for anything between here and the county line. I mean, anything. What happened to those people? I don't know. Keep moving. He stepped aside. I pulled past his cruiser and drove. Denise put her hand on the back of my seat, not touching me, touching the seat, and I felt it like a question neither of us was ready to answer. The road north stayed empty and open. No more stopped vehicles, no more deputies, just farmland and silence and the growing distance between us and whatever was happening to the south. At 8:20, I crossed the county line. At 8:47, I turned onto the state route. At 9:04, I pulled into Kev's driveway. Kev was on the porch, Tamsin behind him. Their two kids, Brecken, 14, and Maeve, 11, visible through the front window. We got out. My mother first, slow, her tote bag clutched to her chest. Colton next, blinking in the morning light. Denise, taking her backpack, not looking at the house, but at the tree line, the road, the sky. Vera last, standing slightly apart, a stranger among family. Kev hugged me, hard, one-armed, brief. You made it. Yeah. He looked at Vera. I introduced her. He didn't ask questions, just nodded and said, "Come inside." We went inside. I'd made it. My family was together under one roof, even Denise, who wasn't quite my family anymore, but was here, present, alive, safe. I'd used early information and moved fast and made decisions, and they'd all been more or less correct. That should have been the end of my story. But at 9:30, Tamsin turned on the television, and we saw the Chambers City footage for the first time. The shaking helicopter shots, the overrun hospital, the things that were once people, moving in groups, converging on sound. The highway south of us, Route 6, the road I'd been on 3 hours ago, choked with stopped cars for miles, and between them, figures moving that weren't trying to leave. And then my phone, which I'd forgotten still had one dying bar of signal, buzzed with a text. Not from Kev, not from Greg, from a number I recognized but hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Margot Hubbard, my neighbor, the Okafor's next-door neighbor, the woman who ran the summer block party and organized the school fundraiser, and had my number, because 3 years ago she'd coordinated a meal train when my mother was in the hospital. The text said, "Wes, are you home? Nobody on our street is answering. I can see something moving in the Hendersons' backyard, and Arthur won't pick up his phone. Please, if you're there, can you check on us?" I stared at it. I was 90 minutes north, safe, inside a house with a basement and supplies and family. And I hadn't knocked on a single door when I left. I'd had an hour, more than an hour. I'd known before anyone on my street. I'd walked past the Okafor's dark house at 5 in the morning with her 3-year-old inside, and I'd gotten in my truck and driven away. Now Margot was texting me because she thought I was still there. Because in her mind, Wes Tobin, the guy who worked for the county, the guy who would know things, was still on Crestwood Lane, still a neighbor, still someone who could walk across the street and check. I looked up from the phone. Kev was watching the television. My mother was in the kitchen with Tamsin. Colton was charging his phone in the hallway. Denise was standing by the window, looking out at the empty road. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. I could tell Margot the truth. I could say, "I'm not there. I left hours ago. I knew, and I left without telling anyone." I could give her what information I had: the deputy's warning, the empty vehicles, the direction of safe travel. Or I could not answer. Let the text sit. Let my phone die. Let the distance I'd already put between myself and that street remain clean and unchosen feeling, the way it had felt at 5 in the morning when I'd walked past those dark houses and told myself, they'll get the alert soon enough. Denise turned from the window. She saw my face, saw the phone in my hand. "What?" she said. I showed her the text. She read it. Her expression didn't change. Not anger, not accusation. Just recognition. The slow settling weight of understanding exactly what I'd done and not done 7 hours earlier. You didn't tell them, she said. No. Any of them? No. She handed the phone back. So, what are you going to do now? And that was the question, not just about Margot, but about all of it. About what early information actually costs. About whether the head start I'd used to save my own family was something I'd earned or something I'd stolen from the people sleeping 12 feet from my front door. I started typing a response to Margot, then stopped. Because what I said next would determine whether I was someone who had acted quickly to protect his family or someone who had hoarded a warning and let his neighbors wake up inside the disaster. The phone showed one bar, flickering. The text might not even send. Denise was still watching me, waiting, not telling me what to do. She'd stopped doing that 5 months ago when she decided I needed to learn how to make decisions without someone else's permission. I looked at the screen, at Margot's words, at the thing moving in the Hendersons' backyard that she'd described with the particular calmness of someone who doesn't yet understand what she's seeing. And I began typing the longest text message of my life to a woman 90 minutes south of me on a street I might never see again, with information that was already hours too late. I typed, Margot, I'm not home. I left before 6 a.m. I had early warning from work. I should have told you. I'm sorry. If you can drive, go north on Route 6. Now take County Road 4 south to County Road 7 north. If Route 6 is blocked at the Highway 19 junction, bring the Okafors, bring the Hendersons. Don't wait for official instructions. Something from Chambers City is moving this way. I'm sorry I didn't knock. I hit send. The single bar held. The message showed delivered. Then the bar disappeared. I sat on Kev's couch and stared at the screen until it went to the lock photo, a picture of Colton at 19, grinning at a lake I couldn't remember the name of. I'd answered. I'd told the truth. And the truth was that I'd left people behind because telling them meant slowing down. And slowing down meant risking the people I'd chosen first. Denise sat across the living room in Kev's recliner watching me. Did it go through? It says delivered. Does that mean she'll read it in time? I don't know. She looked away, out the window. The morning was bright and ordinary September sun on Kev's brown lawn. His kids' bikes in the driveway, the neighbor's dog barking at nothing. Tamsin came in from the kitchen with a legal pad. She'd already been working for an hour while the rest of us were still absorbing the footage. She'd listed food stores, water supply, medications, batteries, weapons, which in Kev's case meant a hunting rifle and a baseball bat. Power's still on, she said. Water's running. I've got about 2 weeks of food if it's the 7 of us. 8 with... She looked at Vera. Vera said, and you won't need to carry me for 2 weeks. My son is 20 miles from here. I'll find a way. Not today you won't, Tamsin said. The roads between here and there pass through Rawlins, and Rawlins is already a mess according to the scanner. She had a battery-powered police scanner on the kitchen counter, crackling with fragmented transmissions. Kev came downstairs. He'd changed into jeans and boots and a flannel shirt, like he was going to work a normal Saturday. His face was set in the expression I'd known my whole life, the one that meant he'd already made a decision and was now simply going to tell everyone what it was. I'm boarding up the first-floor windows, he said. Colton, I need your help. Wes, I need you on the south side with the drill. We worked for 2 hours. Kev had plywood in his garage from a deck project he'd started in June and abandoned. Tamsin directed the kids to fill every container in the house with water. My mother sat in the kitchen and organized medications hers, Vera's blood pressure pills, Brecken's asthma inhaler, into a single plastic bin with handwritten labels. Denise helped Tamsin inventory the pantry. I could hear their voices through the kitchen window as I drilled professional, almost friendly, the particular distance of two women who'd been close once and then navigated a separation that neither of them wanted to discuss. By noon, the house looked like it was waiting for a hurricane. Boards over the windows, water stored, non-perishable food sorted, battery lamps positioned. And my phone was dead. Not the battery, the network. Every phone in the house showed no signal. The internet was gone. The landline gave a fast, busy tone. The only information coming in was the scanner, and the scanner was getting quieter by the hour. At 1:30, a car pulled into the cul-de-sac, then another. Kev watched from the one unboarded window. Blue station wagon. Don't know them. White truck, that's the Collinses from Birch Street. The Collinses knocked. Tamsin answered. Doug Collins, late 50s, retired electrician, stood on the porch with his wife Frances and their adult daughter, who I'd never met. We saw your boards, Doug said. We saw you working this morning. Figured you knew something. Tamsin looked at Kev. Kev looked at me. I'd done it again. Not with information this time, but with visible action. We'd boarded up. We'd moved with purpose while the rest of the street was still processing the shelter-in-place alert. And now people were reading our behavior the way Margot had tried to read my presence on Crestwood Lane as a signal that someone here understood. Come in, Kev said. Then the blue station wagon, a couple in their 30s I didn't recognize, with a toddler in a car seat. They'd seen the Collinses knock. They knocked too. By 3 p.m., there were 14 people in Kev's house. 8 of them were strangers to me. All of them were there because we'd done something visible. And visibility in the absence of information becomes its own kind of broadcast. Tamsin recalculated her food math in the kitchen. 2 weeks for 8. 6 days for 14. Maybe 10 if meals were cut in half. Vera was in the corner of the living room, talking quietly with Frances Collins about the Chamber's regional alert she'd received. I watched Frances's face change the slow realization that the information pipeline had existed, and some people had been connected to it, and others hadn't. How early did you know? Frances asked. Not Vera. Me. I got an advisory around 4:45 this morning. And you told who? My family. She nodded, looked at the boarded windows, at the stacked water jugs, at the organized bin of medications. My sister lives on the south side of town, she said. The side facing Chambers. I didn't answer. I didn't know what answer existed. Colton came up behind me and said low, Dad, there's another car. No more, Tamsin said from the kitchen doorway. Kev. Kev stood at the front window, looked at the car, a sedan with a cracked windshield, 3 people inside, none of them moving to get out. They just sat there in the cul-de-sac, watching the house. I'll talk to them, I said. Wes? I'll talk to them. I went outside. The air smelled wrong, not smoke, not anything I could name, but different. Electric. Like the atmosphere before a storm, except the sky was clear. I walked to the sedan. The driver rolled his window down. A man about my age, sweating, eyes jumpy. A woman in the passenger seat holding a folded map. A teenage girl in the back with earbuds in, and her arms wrapped around herself. Is this a shelter? The man asked. No, it's my brother's house. We were heading north. The road's blocked about 6 miles past here. There are things in the road. We turned around. What things? He just looked at me. The woman with the map said, People. People who are wrong. I felt the cul-de-sac narrow. The house behind me with its 14 occupants. The road north, the road to Vera's son. The road that was supposed to be our evacuation corridor if things got worse, blocked. You can come inside, I said, but we're running low on space. The man shook his head. We're going to keep trying. West, maybe. Is there a way west from here? County Road 12 runs west about 2 miles back. I don't know what condition it's in. He nodded. The woman folded her map along a crease. The teenager didn't look up. They pulled away. I watched them go and thought, I just gave them information. A road name, a direction. I had no idea whether County Road 12 was clear or crawling with whatever they'd seen 6 miles north. I'd just done exactly what I'd done with Margot's text. Given someone a direction based on incomplete knowledge, and let them drive into whatever awaited them. I went back inside. Kev was waiting. What'd they say? Roads blocked north. They saw infected. Kev's jaw tightened. How far? 6 miles. That's close. I know. We stood in his hallway, and I watched my brother do what he always did. Absorb the information, compress it into a decision, and deliver it without asking anyone's input. We stay, he said. Board the back, double-check the locks. Nobody goes outside after dark. Kev, if they're 6 miles away and moving, then running is worse. We'd be in a car, on roads we don't know are clear, with 14 people and not enough vehicles. He was right. Probably right. But to stay was Kev's answer to everything. Stay in the house, stay in the job, stay in the marriage. Kev stayed. I was the one who ran, always half a step ahead of the thing I was afraid of. And this morning, that instinct had saved us. But this morning was 8 hours ago. Okay, I said. We stay. That night, Tamsin organized the house into sleeping shifts and watch positions. Doug Collins took the first watch with Kev. Doug's electrician hands had rigged a battery lamp system in the yard that could be turned off from inside, giving the watchers a killable perimeter light without opening a door. I sat in the kitchen at midnight, unable to sleep, eating half a granola bar, and staring at my dead phone. Vera sat across from me. She'd been quiet since the afternoon, watching, listening, occasionally saying something to Tamsin about medication schedules that suggested decades of hospital administration experience. You're going over the morning, she said. Yeah. The neighbors you didn't tell. I looked up. She wasn't judging. Her face held the neutrality of someone who'd spent 30 years managing information flow in a hospital. I keep thinking about the Okafor's kid, I said. 3 years old. Parents who wouldn't have gotten that advisory. You couldn't have told everyone. I could have told someone. Anyone. A knock. 30 seconds. And then 30 more seconds for the next house. And the next. And by the time you'd walked the block, you'd have lost the window on the road. Maybe. Or maybe I'd have been 10 minutes later and still fine. You don't know that. No. She was quiet for a moment. Then, at Chambers Regional, we had a notification system for critical incidents. Internal pages go to certain staff in a certain order before the public announcement. The order exists because if everyone knows simultaneously, the parking lot fills, the exits block, the people who need to be in position can't get there. She paused. It's not the same as what you did, but it's the same principle, sequential disclosure. Someone is always last. The Okafors were last because they were nobody to me. They were last because you're human and scared, and your mother can't drive herself. I didn't know if that made it better or worse. I still don't. In the morning, we woke to silence. The scanner had gone dead overnight. No transmissions, no power hum from outside the grid had failed at some point while we slept. Tamsin's flashlight moved through the house like a lighthouse beam, checking windows, checking bodies, counting. "Everyone's here," she said. Kev tried the faucet. Nothing. The water system had been pressurized by electric pumps. No grid meant no water beyond what we'd stored. 14 people. 6 days of food at half rations. Maybe 3 days of water if we were careful. No road north, no information, no communication. And then, at 7:30 a.m., a knock. Not at the front. At the back door, the one that led to Kev's fenced yard. Kev took the rifle. I stood behind him. He opened the door. A woman, early 40s, in hospital scrubs stained with something dark. Breathing hard. Behind her, through the fence gate she'd apparently climbed, a man was lying face down on the grass, not moving. "I need help," she said. "He's been hurt. Not bitten hurt. A car accident. He has internal injuries and I don't have anything to work with." "Who are you?" "My name is Colleen Rask. I'm a nurse at Garfield General. We evacuated the hospital 6 hours ago. There was no coordination, just everyone running. I've been carrying him for 2 miles. She looked past Kev to me, to the house behind us. "Please, he'll die without pressure stabilization, and I can't hold it alone." Kev looked at me. That look again, the one where he'd already decided no and wanted someone to confirm it. I looked at the woman. At the man on the grass, his shirt wet and his breathing shallow. At the 14 people behind me who needed whatever resources we had. And I said, "Bring him in." Because I hadn't knocked. I'd driven past dark houses at 5 in the morning and I hadn't knocked. And this woman had dragged a bleeding man 2 miles in the dark while I'd been eating granola bars at my brother's kitchen table. Kev's face hardened. He stepped aside, but the set of his shoulders told me we'd crossed something between us. He wouldn't have opened that door. Kev stayed. Kev conserved. Kev protected what was inside the perimeter, and the perimeter was the perimeter. Colleen and I carried the man, she said his name was Jerome, onto the living room floor. She worked with the medical supplies from my mother's bin and a stack of clean towels from Tamsin's linen closet, her hands fast and certain. Vera appeared beside her. The 2 women exchanged a look, the mutual recognition of medical professionals. And then Vera was handing supplies before being asked, anticipating the sequence of wound assessment and pressure management like she'd done it 1,000 times from the admin side. "I need better bandaging than towels," Colleen said. "And if anyone has ibuprofen or acetaminophen, I need it now." My mother produced a bottle of acetaminophen from her tote bag. Tamsin brought the first aid kit, the real one, the one I'd grabbed from under my bathroom sink 26 hours ago, without thinking about why it might matter. Jerome stabilized. Unconscious but breathing evenly. Colleen sat back on her heels, exhaled, and looked around the room for the first time. 14 faces looked back at her. "How bad is it?" Doug Collins asked. "Out there." "The hospital is gone," she said. "The south side of town is gone. Route 6 is impassable. I don't know about north, we came from the east." "What do you mean gone?" "I mean the infected moved through it faster than people could leave. The overnight staff at Garfield General, we had maybe 20 minutes between the first patient presenting and the building being overrun. There was no warning. Francis Collins made a sound. Low, involuntary. 'My sister,' she said. 'South side.' Nobody spoke. I stood there in my brother's living room with 16 people, now 16, and felt the weight of what my early information had actually built. Not safety, not a refuge. A position that attracted need. Every visible competence, every audible breath of organization, every boarded window became a signal to the desperate people still moving. And I couldn't turn them away. Not now. Not after Crestwood Lane. The overcorrection that Denise had predicted. Maybe that Denise had even seen forming in the moment I'd answered Margot's text. That day, Wednesday, we organized. Tamsin rebuilt the math. Colleen inventoried medical supplies and assigned herself as the person who would assess anyone who arrived for signs of infection. Vera and my mother managed the medication schedule for Jerome, for my mother's blood pressure pills, for Brecken's inhaler that was running low. Doug rewired the battery lamps to conserve power. Colton, my 23-year-old son who I'd assumed needed rescuing at 6 in the morning, turned out to be the calmest person under pressure in the entire house. He organized water rationing without being asked. He counted cups. He labeled bottles. He made a chart on the back of Tamsin's legal pad and posted it on the refrigerator. I watched him do this and realized I'd treated him like a child that morning, because treating him like a child meant I was needed. And being needed first was what had driven every choice I'd made since 4:47 a.m. Denise saw me watching him. She came to stand beside me in the kitchen doorway. "He's good at this," she said. "Yeah. He gets it from you, the list making. He gets it from you, the calm." She didn't answer. After a moment, she said, "What are you going to do about the next person who knocks?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, you let Colleen in because you felt guilty about the street. And it worked out. She's useful, she's honest, Jerome is stable. But the next person might not be those things. And you'll still feel guilty. So what do I do?" "I don't know. But you deciding alone is how we got into every argument we ever had." She walked back to the pantry. I stood there and heard her clearly. "Stop choosing for everyone. Stop deciding who gets warned, who gets saved, who gets told, and calling it responsibility when it's just control." Thursday, the third day. 2 more knocks. One was a man alone, mid-60s, confused, dehydrated. Colleen assessed him. No bites, no fever, no signs. We let him in. His name was Fletcher, and he couldn't tell us where he'd come from. The second was a family of 4 in a minivan that had run out of gas at the bottom of the cul-de-sac. Father, mother, 2 kids under 10. They didn't knock, they just sat in the van until Colton noticed them and went outside. I watched from the window as Colton talked to the father through the driver's window. Watched the man's face, exhausted, scared, not aggressive. Watched Colton look back at the house. At me, in the window. He didn't ask permission. He brought them in. 20 people. Tamsin didn't recalculate this time. She just looked at the legal pad, drew a line through her original numbers, and wrote new ones underneath. 3 days of food, 2 days of water at current rates. "This can't keep happening," Kev said that night. He was standing in the upstairs hallway, voice low, talking to me and Tamsin. Denise stood at the end of the hall, listening. "I know," I said. "You keep saying yes." One was a nurse who saved a man's life. One was a lost old man. One was a family with little kids. And tomorrow it'll be 5 more, and the day after, 10. And we'll have a house full of people and nothing to feed them. What's the alternative? Lock the door and let them die on the lawn. The alternative is that you stop acting like saving everyone is going to undo whatever you think you did wrong on Tuesday morning. I felt that land. Kev didn't know about Margot's text, about the aquaphors, about the specific shape of what I'd failed to do. But he knew me. He knew I was overcorrecting. Tamsin said, "We need to move. Not take in more people, move all of us somewhere with resources. The high school is a designated shelter. It's 3 miles. If we go as a group, 3 miles with 20 people, some of them injured, some of them children. No vehicles that run," Kev said. "In territory where we know the infected are operating." Doug's truck runs, I said. And the family's minivan would if it had gas. We have no gas. Doug might have a can in his truck bed. Kev shook his head, not disagreeing, calculating, processing. Tomorrow, he said. If anyone else comes, you tell them the plan. We're leaving in the morning, everyone together, toward the school. You don't invite them in. You tell them we're going, and they can come with us, or keep moving. I started. That's honest. That's not a promise. That's a plan with a time limit. He went downstairs. Tamsin followed. Denise stayed at the end of the hall. I walked to her. He's not wrong, she said. I know he's not wrong. And you're not wrong either. You just can't keep making the same answer to a different question. What's the right answer? Tell people what you're doing and let them choose. That's different from either opening the door or locking it. She paused. It's also different from what you did on Tuesday. You didn't give anyone a choice. You just left. I gave you a choice. You called me and said pack a bag. That's not a choice, that's an instruction you dressed up as asking. I wanted to argue. I didn't. Friday morning, day 4. Doug had a half can of gas, 3 gallons, maybe. Enough to move the minivan about 40 miles, or the truck about 60. Not enough for both. Colleen checked everyone. No bites, no fevers. Jerome was conscious now, talking, able to sit up. His internal injuries were stable, but he couldn't walk far. Fletcher, the confused older man, had cleared somewhat. Turned out he was diabetic and hadn't eaten in 2 days. Once Tamsin fed him, his cognition sharpened enough to tell us he'd walked from the south side of town after his house was overrun. He'd been a high school shop teacher for 30 years. The school's set up as a shelter? He asked. It's designated. I don't know if anyone's actually running it. I know that building, he said. I worked there from 1989 to 2019. I know every door, every storage room, every emergency exit. Information. Specific, practical information that none of us had. Fletcher had been useless on Thursday, dehydrated, confused, a mouth to feed. On Friday, he was our map. If you're still listening, I appreciate you staying with this. I'm going to ask this once, because it's the piece I still carry. If you'd felt what I felt, the guilt of leaving, the weight of every new knock, would you have kept opening the door? Or would you have set a limit earlier, before the math turned against you? I think honest people disagree on that. If this story has meant something to you, subscribing tells me it's worth finishing these properly. We decided to move as one group. Kev drove Doug's truck with the injured Jerome, my mother, Fletcher, the 2 young kids from the minivan family. Everyone else walked. 3 miles, early morning, when the air was cold and still and sound carried less. I walked at the back of the group with Colleen and the minivan father, whose name was Craig. Denise walked ahead with Colton and Brecken and Maeve. Kev led in the truck at walking pace. The group stretched along the residential street like a slow parade through empty territory. 2 blocks from the house, we passed a home with its front door standing open. Dark inside. No sound. The family of 4 who'd lived there, I recognized the mailbox flag, the garden gnome, were simply gone. Another block, another open door. A child's bicycle on its side in a driveway. A sprinkler still running in a yard, which made no sense. Because the water pressure had died, it must have been on a private well with a battery pump. No infected, not yet. The silence was worse. At the halfway point, 1.5 miles, the intersection of Kev's street with the main residential artery, we saw our first ones. 3 of them, in the road, about 200 yards ahead, not moving toward us. moving in a slow, directionless drift, like people who'd forgotten where they were going. Kev stopped the truck. The walking group halted behind it. Colleen came up beside me. She looked at them with a flat assessment of someone who'd seen the progression firsthand. "They're mid-stage," she said. "Not fast, not coordinated, but sound responsive. Can we go around? If we stay quiet and give them distance. There's a side street elm, I think that runs parallel for 2 blocks. We rerouted. 20 people, moving in near silence down a residential side street, the truck rolling at idle. My mother visible through the rear window, her lipstick fresh, her canvas tote on her lap. The 2 young kids asleep against her sides. We made it past without incident. The 3 drifters never turned. 2 more blocks. Then the school appeared Garfield High, its flat, modern roofline visible over the trees. The parking lot was empty except for a county vehicle, a white SUV with the Garfield County seal on the door. Someone was there. Kev pulled the truck up to the main entrance. I jogged ahead. The front doors were unlocked. Inside, the lobby was lit by battery lanterns. A folding table had been set up with a clipboard, a case of water bottles, and a stack of Army surplus blankets. Behind the table sat a woman in a county polo shirt, mid-30s, her face drawn. She looked up when I walked in like she'd been waiting a long time and expected no one. "Are you from the county?" I asked. "I'm the emergency coordinator for this sector. Heather Durnan. I was deployed here Tuesday night." She looked past me, through the glass doors, at the 20 people arriving in the parking lot. "How many?" 20. 1 with internal injuries, 1 elderly diabetic, 2 young children. She picked up her clipboard. "I can take all of you. But I should tell you, I have no communication with the county office, no radio, no phone. The supplies in this building are what you see plus what's in the cafeteria kitchen. And I'm alone." "You've been alone since Tuesday." "The second coordinator was supposed to arrive Wednesday. She didn't." I looked at the gymnasium beyond the lobby, the cots she'd set up, the water stations, the hand-drawn signs for men's and women's restrooms. She'd done all of it alone. Opened the building, set up the shelter, waited for the people who were supposed to come, both staff and refugees, and neither had arrived until now. "You've been running a shelter for nobody," I said. "I've been ready for whoever came." She straightened. "And now you're here. So let's get your people inside." We moved in. Tamsin and Heather fell into immediate coordination. 2 women with organizational instincts that meshed without explanation. Colleen set up a medical corner with the blankets and the school's first aid station supplies. Fletcher walked the building like he'd never left, showing us which doors had deadbolts, which hallways connected to the kitchen, where the maintenance storage held tools and spare lumber. By noon, 20 people were settled, fed from the cafeteria's emergency supply canned goods, powdered milk, institutional peanut butter. Not comfortable, not safe, but organized. And then I did something I'd spent 4 days unable to do. I sat at the folding table in the lobby, the one Heather had set up as a check-in point, and I wrote a sign. Marker on poster board. I wrote the school's address. I wrote, "Shelter active, medical available, water, approach from the north." I wrote it clearly, truthfully, without exaggeration. Then I walked outside, alone, and stapled it to the telephone pole at the entrance to the school property, facing the road. Visible, intentional, information given freely to anyone who passed. Kev found me when I came back inside. "What did you put up?" "A sign. What the building is, what we have. You just told every person on that road to come here." I told them what's true. They can decide. And when 50 people show up and we can't feed them? When one of them is bitten and we can't tell? Then we deal with it, together, out loud, not by pretending we're not here. He stared at me. I stared back. You're trying to balance a scale, he said. And it doesn't work that way. You can't undo the street by saving everybody else. I'm not trying to undo it. I'm trying to not do it again. Those are the same thing, Wes. They weren't, but I couldn't explain how they were different in a way that would satisfy Kev. Because Kev made decisions and moved forward and didn't turn them over endlessly the way I did. Kev's strength was certainty. Mine, if I had one, was doubt. And doubt had made me leave without knocking. And doubt had also made me answer Margot's text and stop for Vera and open the door for Colleen. Both things, same source. That afternoon, Denise found me in the school library. She was looking at the shelves like they were wallpaper, not reading, not browsing, just standing near something familiar. The sign was a good idea, she said. Kev disagrees. Kev's not wrong to worry, but the sign isn't about erasing Tuesday. It's about what you actually believe. What do I believe? That people deserve to know what's available, even if knowing brings them here, even if it costs us. She turned from the shelf. You knew Tuesday morning, and you chose who got to know. And it wasn't an evil choice, it was a scared one. The sign is what you'd do if you weren't scared. I looked at her. This woman I'd been married to for 22 years and separated from for 5 months, standing in a school library during the end of the world, telling me something about myself that was kinder than I deserved. I called Mom first, I said. Before you? I know. Not because I know why. She needed you sooner. It was right. Was it right not to call you first? It was right to call me at all. Some people wouldn't have. She went back to the main hall. I stayed in the library for another minute, feeling something shift between my ribs, not forgiveness, not absolution, but the faint possibility that a single morning's failure didn't have to become the entire architecture of who I was. By Saturday morning, 7 more people had arrived. The sign had worked. 3 had come from the south, a couple and a teenage boy, and 4 from the east in a station wagon that was running on fumes. They'd seen the sign and turned in. Heather processed them. Colleen checked them. Colton added them to the water chart. 27 people. The cafeteria food would last maybe 4 more days at this rate. Water was the bigger problem. The school's own supply was gone. And we were down to the bottled cases Heather had brought, plus what we'd carried from Kev's house. Fletcher came to me Saturday afternoon. He'd been in the school's maintenance corridor all morning. There's a pump room, he said. The athletic fields used to irrigate off a well. The pump is electric dead now, but the well itself is still capped, and the water table here is shallow. 30 feet maybe. A hand pump could reach it. Do we have a hand pump? No, but we have PVC pipe in maintenance storage and a check valve from the old chemistry lab's vacuum system. I could rig something that would pull water. Slow, bucket at a time, but water. How long? A day, maybe 2 if I need to fabricate a seal. I found Doug. The 2 of them, retired electrician and retired shop teachers, spent Saturday and Sunday building a manual water pump out of salvaged school components. It wasn't elegant. It leaked at the seams. But by Sunday evening, it pulled clean water from the well, 1 slow bucket at a time. 27 people had water because a confused old man I'd let in on Thursday over the math, over the logic, turned out to know something nobody else in the building knew. I thought about Kev's certainty and my doubt, about how neither one was sufficient by itself. Monday was the 7th day. More arrivals. 34 people now. The sign brought them in. Colleen assessed them. Some had injuries. None were bitten. One, a woman named Beth Oliveira, had been a pharmacist and brought with her a bag of medications she'd grabbed from her own store supply before fleeing. Brecken's inhaler replacement, acetaminophen, antibiotics, blood pressure medication for my mother and Vera. Beth had taken those medications without authorization, without a prescription, without institutional approval. She'd grabbed what she could carry and run. I stole them, she said flatly when Colleen asked what she had. If anyone from corporate survives to prosecute me, they can have my badge. By Monday afternoon, the school had become something not safe, but functional. A place with water, food for a few more days, medical attention, and a sign on the road that told the truth. And then, at 4 p.m., Vera's son walked in. He'd walked from 20 miles away, 2 days on back roads, a tall, lean man in his 30s with blistered feet and a face that collapsed when he saw her. Mom. She held him, and I looked away. Gave them the hallway. When Vera came back, her face was different, the careful neutrality gone, replaced by something raw and unguarded. He's safe, she said. Just that. Good. Wes, you stopped on the road. I did. If you hadn't stopped, I'd have been standing on that shoulder when whatever happened to those people in the van and the pickup when that reached me. I know. You didn't know that on Tuesday. You just stopped. I almost didn't. But you did. I nodded. She touched my arm briefly, practically, the way a colleague would, and went back to her son. That night, I found Kev on the gymnasium roof. He'd climbed up through the maintenance hatch to watch the surrounding streets. I climbed up beside him. The town below was dark. No street lights, no house lights. A faint orange glow to the south that might have been fire or sunrise reflecting wrong. I called county dispatch this morning on the ham radio, he said. Heather had a unit in the county SUV that Doug had gotten working. They know we're here. They're sending a supply convoy when the North Road clears, maybe Wednesday, maybe longer. That's good. That's good because of the sign, because they know this building has people in it. He was quiet. I wouldn't have put up the sign. I know. I'd have kept us quiet, small, hidden. Yeah. And we wouldn't have the well pump. We wouldn't have Beth's medications. We wouldn't have Colleen or Fletcher or anyone who came because they saw the sign. You'd have kept us fed longer. I'd have kept us fed and alone, and eventually stuck. He leaned back on his hands. You spent too long not trusting your own judgment, Wes. And then when you finally moved on Tuesday, you moved right. You just didn't move wide enough. I'm trying. I see that. We sat on the roof for a long time, not talking, watching the dark town and the faint shapes that moved through it, distant enough to be shadows. On Wednesday, day 9, the convoy came. 2 National Guard trucks with supplies and a route out, north to a larger staging area. They could take everyone, all 38 people by then. We loaded, my mother in the first truck, clutching her tote, Colton helping Jerome walk, Denise carrying her backpack, the same one from Tuesday morning. I was the last aboard. Before I climbed in, I walked back to the telephone pole and looked at the sign I'd made. Water-stained now. One corner curling, the words still legible. Shelter active. Medical available. Water. Approach from the north. Information. Given freely. Available to whoever needed it. I pulled the sign down, not because it wasn't true anymore. It was. For a while longer at least, but because the building behind it was about to be empty. And a sign for a shelter with no one in it was worse than no sign at all. A lie dressed as help. I folded it in half and put it in my jacket. Then I climbed into the truck. Denise was sitting across from me on the bench seat. She didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. The truck pulled north. Colton sat beside me, his shoulder touching mine. The water chart from the refrigerator folded in his pocket. He'd taken it with him. We rode in silence. 38 people in 2 trucks, heading towards something we'd been told was better but couldn't verify. The same position everyone starts from. Incomplete information, a direction, and the choice to move. At some point during the drive, Denise reached across the gap between the bench seats and took the folded sign out of my jacket. She unfolded it, read it, refolded it, and handed it back. "Keep it," she said. "Why?" "Because you made it." I put it back in my pocket. The truck moved north. The road was clear. I didn't know what was ahead. And for the first time in 9 days, that uncertainty felt like something other than a failure.